The fire at Whiskey Slough erupted at Well 14 on Pacific Gas and Electric Company's gas storage field on McDonald Island as a drilling crew was withdrawing drilling pipe from a new gas extraction well some 5,200 feet deep. This is the story of the people who fought the fire. I'm George Ruge with Paul Gerard of the PG&E News Bureau. I visited McDonald Island a couple of times during the fire, but Paul Gerard was there during the almost nearly 3 weeks that the fire jetted and blazed from the earth. I take it at this time that the fire departments were the first to get there?
Yes, there were 5 local fire departments which arrived on the scene shortly after the fire broke out. Roberts Island Fire Department, Stockton, Sharp Army, DEFCO, the Tuxedo Fire Department, and you saw the Country Club Fire Department.
All that hosing belongs to those fire departments, I take it?
Yes, those are all hoses from the municipal districts, and of course there's some hose there from the company.
What's the temperature of that fire? Is there any estimate on that?
Well, I think a good estimate would be that the temperatures reached about 1,400 degrees at the hottest point. It was, however, cool enough to get within a very close distance of the burning well itself, provided you had some water protection.
All of that spaghetti-like tangle over the fire, what's that?
That's the collapsed derrick and the drilling platform.
How high was that derrick?
It was about 128 feet high and valued at somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000.
Okay, these are workers on the scene.
Yes, those are PG&E workers.
And more of your firemen getting their equipment ready to go.
Yeah, water to fight the first stages of the fire had to be drafted from nearby irrigation districts, and that's what those firemen were doing. They were preparing to draft water.
There's a good shot of the fire. Gives you an idea of the height of the flames when you're standing at ground level and looking up at it.
There's an interesting thing here, George. You can see the drill pipe to the right, and that drill pipe caused everybody a great deal of concern. Red Adair didn't know whether that pipe was going to come out of there in 40-foot sections or whether the entire 3,200 feet which remained in the well might come out like a giant corkscrew.
That problem resolved itself as the situation developed, eh?
Yes, in about the 5th day, that pipe disappeared. We still don't know exactly where it went, but it probably did fall back into the well.
This gives you the feeling of this fire going on day and night, changing, size a little bit at times, but it's impressive that it burned 24 hours a day with the same sounds and the same intensity.
Yes, that's absolutely true. This is a picture of the one of the sump pumps which had to be dug in order to get water to that fire.
You know, I talked to Red Adair on the island, Paul, several times.
Fires like this, as we mentioned, are special situations. They're big, but they're rare as fires go around the world. Don't you have to have a lot of kind of special equipment?
Well, the equipment I have are these big fire pumps, and then I have a bunch of other stuff, too, that we use, and booms to tear this rig apart.
Red, how much gear have you brought up from your headquarters in Texas?
I have all the firefighting gear I have left. I've got these 4 big pumps and a hook and all of the hose. Well, it's everything we need.
How often do fires like this occur around the world? Is there one going on at most any time, or what's the frequency? You've made a career out of it, so they must happen fairly often.
Well, we've been awful busy this year. I haven't been home hardly any since Thanksgiving. I had to come off of a fire in Laredo. I've got one going in Louisiana. Have one on fire in Bolivia. Just come back from the Middle East. Had one in Dubai. Had one in Canada. Had one in Wyoming. Then one over near Australia.
How many of those were natural gas as compared to oil?
There was 3 of them were oil wells and the rest of them were gas wells.
You know, Paul, my hat's off to the men who worked under these conditions. What's going on there? What is that water?
Well, in this particular picture, George, a welder is just putting the finishing touches on the 10-inch water line, which delivered 9,000 gallons of water per minute to the burning well. Connected to that well were 10 high-pressure water monitors or nozzles shipped to the fire by Adair. The derrick and the relief well of Zuckerman 4 was just being put up, as we saw just a second ago. And here, hoods for corrugated iron and 2-inch pipe are being placed to cover the wells near the fire. The hoods protected the wells from the heat and the flame, were dragged into place by tractor.
Well, I've been up underneath there looking at it, and it's a funny thing. Once you get underneath there, it's fairly cool. It's getting up to it that's awful hot, and like putting these shields over the other 2 wells, it was real hot. And like this morning, it was hot. But it'll change. And sometimes when you get up there a little wet, it can stand there pretty good.
You know, for the lay person, what this means is you're drilling down and intercepting the well that's on fire. Is that it?
That's right.
And then you're in effect gonna force this mud, this bentonite, into the relief well, and that'll kind of plug it up and cut off the gas supply?
That's right. It should search the U-tube around, go in this well and come out the fire. Then we have some bridge plugs. Once we have it out, we'll run bridge plug in there and plug it off.
Doesn't it take some pretty good geometry to make those holes intersect exactly?
Oh, yeah. You have directional drillers that do it. Oh, boy, it's pretty good. So he's only got about a 2-degree hole to drill, so he's on target.
The thing that impresses me is the ability of men to meld themselves together in a situation like this, to improvise and to come up with something that is really cohesive and almost military in its precision.
That was one of the things that impressed everybody up there, George. There was a precision operation going on up there. We had welders and fitters and engineers and clerks and everybody else you could think of up there, working all as a big single team. And it was impressive, I think, for everybody to see the way they did work. And they worked together, and there wasn't a gripe about anything, and you found people doing things that they wouldn't normally be doing. For instance, an operator acting on KP or a technician out digging a trench. These were the things that impressed me about it. Everybody had a job to do, and they did it.
There's some equipment up there, the likes of which I have never seen anywhere else.
Those are the high-pressure pumps which were flown in by a charter DC-8 from Houston, Texas. They arrived the day after the fire started.
Mm-hmm.
This is an awfully good aerial view of the fire after all the water apparatus was intact. There, the Zuckerman wells going up in the background. This is a United States Forest Service aircraft which was flown in from Boise, Idaho, and they did an infrared scan on the island in an attempt to determine the boundaries of the peat bog fire, which had some concern on the part of Adair. He was particularly fearful of that fire because he thought that if he had to get some equipment in there, that it could be lost in a peat bog fire, and that was something that he wanted to avoid. The infrared scan didn't work out, however, because of the intensity of the well fire. Picked up a lot of ambient heat from the nearby water.
Red, all the years that you've been fighting well fires, I imagine that the inevitable close call has come.
Yeah, we've had quite a few of them. I've been real fortunate. I've been blowed up in South Texas. In New Year's Day, 1953, in Inglewood, California, I got crushed, and they didn't think I'd make it, but I fooled them, and that kept me down about 6 months. So then a number of other little accidents happened, but I've never been awful lucky.
It's dangerous work at best, and yet there have been no injuries here so far. What is the batting average, so to speak, on men working around situations like this?
Well, this all goes back to getting organized. Like when I get here, I take over. I get with the personnel with PG&E, and we set up a work program. We have each man in charge, one man in charge of, like, your transportation, communication, road building, and every man knows his job. And nobody's running around like a wild chicken. And this is the reason we haven't had even a finger smash. That you plan your work out, everybody knows what he's going to do, and it's reason there's so much work going on now. It could have been an awful lot of work finished here. And you just don't make a move unless somebody tells you to do it or that, and this is the reason we've been awful lucky.
Fellas having a little conference, are they?
Yeah, this is when they were building one of the manifolds for the Halliburton rigs. Those are one of our welders conferring there with the Halliburton people to check that thing out. That line had to be tested to 4,000 pounds pressure, and it worked just absolutely perfectly. Every weld was flawless, and this was just the way things were done. There were a lot of those tailboard briefings up there on everything ranging from safety to the way somebody wanted something done.
That equipment has to just about be custom made, doesn't it?
Oh, every bit of the manifolding equipment was custom made by our people working from rough sketches drawn out by Adair. Here the fellows are putting in the mud tanks, and they're doing more welding on that big manifold. This was the suction manifold, which would be filled with mud.
People don't really realize what you're really up against, what our job consists of. We've got this drilling rig to look after. We've got the Drexel drilling men. We've got the men running the casing. We've got the Halliburton people to do the pumping. You've got the rigging. You've got mud people. You've got crane people. We've got stuff on this directional well. We've got water going here. And we've got wellhead equipment stuff. And we have to know exactly how all this stuff is going to fit in together. And this is our job, just like looking at this rig and see they drill this right, that Halliburton is rigged up, that we're ready, and everybody is ready on any given minute when something could break loose. We don't, so this is the reason you got everybody on their toes. So it's quite a strain on us, and not to make any mistakes, and we hope that we're right. But you can't make these decisions at the higher level. You have to make them out here in the field. That's where nearly all the work takes place.
That powdery substance, the flour-like substance, what's that used for?
That's the bentonite and barium sulfate mixture, which was used for the mud. The bentonite swells to 14 times its dry weight when it gets wet. And each one of those sacks would make a 112-pound cubic foot mixture.
Those are the potter sheds, you call those?
Those are the potter tanks. That's what the mud was put into. Incidentally, George, there were 19,000 of those sacks which had to be opened. It took almost 3 days to do it, working day and night. And the mud people did it, our own people did it, and even some of the Halliburton people helped out.
All that gear that we've been watching there, those trucks and the rest of it. And, incidentally, what's this? Is that water supply? Where's that?
We needed a huge water supply for the drilling operation and for the kill. And here they're building one of those reservoirs. And this water came in, was taken out of Whiskey Slough and was stored here and then was pumped up the hill.
You know, it's amazing to me, all that equipment was marshaled in short order on the scene here. Must have come from a pretty far piece.
It sure did. Stuff was flown in from Houston, Texas. The Halliburton equipment was marshaled from all over the West, from Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. And the operators for that equipment came from all parts of the United States. They were all veterans of blowouts and knew exactly the precision that this thing had to be done with. This is a real hot piece. Now, the flame changed just a few minutes before this picture was taken, and Adair was able to get in there with a tractor and start hauling out some of the debris.
Oh.
The flame took on a straight character, as you can see from this photograph, instead of billowing out into 2 or sometimes 3 tongues. You'll notice that sometimes it had a translucent appearance to it. The reason for that was that we were getting complete combustion. Sometimes when the wind blew, why we were not getting complete combustion, and we did have some smoke, just a very little bit of it.
It's, you wish everybody could have seen this. It really dominated that flat delta agricultural landscape.
It sure did. It was visible for several hundred miles from the air, and by land about 20 miles, and at times it could be heard for as far away as 30 miles. And the roar was just absolutely deafening. It was fantastic.
There's a fella enjoying himself.
Well, he's not enjoying himself. These are the Halliburton fellas, and they were up there on standby, and they couldn't leave their trucks. They had to stay right with them. In fact, the trucks were kept on idle for the last 24 hours so that they could be ready to pump mud at any time. Nobody knew what that well was going to do, what the relief well was going to do. If we got a breakthrough, they had to start pumping right away.
Yeah, it's a case of hurry up and wait, but be ready. Eh?
That's right. Every bit of it was that way. It was a military precision thing. You didn't know when D-Day was going to come.
What's Red doing there?
Well, he's just had a tailboard briefing. He's told the fellows that it could come in just any minute and to be really doubly alert and watch out and keep your eyes on that control board, which was the only way that they had of communicating with those trucks. They had a big board up there which told the fellows what pressure they wanted them pumping at and what trucks they wanted on the line.
How many of those pumping trucks are there?
There were 10 pumping trucks with a total of 7,000 horsepower plus 2 mixing trucks. Incidentally, in this picture on the far left, you can see Adair at his command post.
There's a dusk shot, twilight.
Yeah, by the time this picture was taken, we were into the pumping operation, and it was now a matter of waiting for the big breakthrough, for the water to make communication with the well.
If this one goes the way it should go, the way the rest of them do on relief wells, fire should gradually just deteriorate. Then you'll see the fire will go out. Then you'll see maybe water and mud come out, and it gets lower and lower, and then it just dissipates. There won't be anything left. And a few little bubbles of gas every now and then. That's if it kills like we hope it will.
Well, this is the end of the saga at Whiskey Slough, isn't it?
It sure is, George. In this photograph, you can see we've now made communication with the well, and the flame is starting to die out. You can see the vapor coming off of the flame. It's gotten thinner and it's starting to die down very slowly. There she is. She comes down into those most gorgeous desert colors. It gets brilliant for a second, and then you can see the column of water coming up, straight up, and that flame soon will be dead. You know, it reminds me, George, of the Yosemite Firefall.
Must have been eerie, that silence and darkness after all that light and noise.
After hearing that flame and the noise for 19 days, it was a deathly silence and a deathly dark. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I remember is that nobody had a flashlight around, and there was a big scramble to get some light.
The fire at Whiskey Slough Well 14 on McDonald Island roared 18 days and succumbed early on the 19th day, capping the combined effort by Pacific Gas and Electric Company personnel, drilling and pumping teams, and the Red Adair organization. PG&E photographers Don Crow and Jerry Graham filmed the scene for the Public Information Department of Pacific Gas and Electric Company.